Ravi Venkatesan, why is it so hard for foreign companies to win in India, to conquer the chaos?
Well, India's always been a difficult place to do business, but in the last 5-6 years, it appears to have got much harder. And it's levels of corruption are off the charts. Lots of crony capitalism. The bureaucracy is just really, really grindingly slow. Infrastructure is bad, and so when you put all these things together, it's a hostile place for all businesses, but multinational companies have a particularly hard time. So that's one reason. A second reason is if you look at the income pyramid, everybody talks about the great Indian middle class, but the way it works is there's a small affluent society at the top, roughly the size of Australia, but the big prize is the emerging middle, which is in numbers the size of Germany and UK combined. Now that's a large market, but to crack that is incredibly difficult. And we can talk about how McDonald's did it and some other companies did it, but it requires a tremendous amount of innovation. It requires a long-term perspective. You need to be willing to make investments and not see a return for 5 to 10 years. Very few companies are willing to do that.
Well, with 1.1 billion people in India, the payoff is clearly there despite all those problems. Can you give me an example of how you helped conquer that chaos when you were chairman of Microsoft India?
Yeah, sure. Well, one of Microsoft's big challenges in India, particularly when I joined in 2004, was piracy. It turns out that India is a high piracy market. 75% don't pay for the software they use, and that's a big deal. And so, as usual, we began to talk to the government about enforcement and so on and so forth. And then a minister pointed out to me that copyright in India means the right to copy. So he says, listen, stop waiting for India to change. You change your business model. And that's what we set about doing. So we changed our pricing for the local market, made entry-level versions that were much cheaper, made local language versions of Windows and Office. We really increased distribution reach, came up with a free, almost free version for schools and very low price version for government. By doing all this, we moved the piracy rate down to about 63%. So if you don't expect the market to adapt to your business model, but recognize these are the realities and challenges of the country, how do I change my own approach, my business model? There's a pretty big prize at the end of the tunnel.
And what is McDonald's? You mentioned McDonald's, what they are doing in India to conquer the chaos.
See, for me, McDonald's is a fantastic example because here's a company that we typically associate with the beef burgers, right? They come to a country which is still largely vegetarian. The cow is sacred and $1 is still a lot of money. And they end up building the fastest growing restaurant chain in the country. And the really nice thing is to see how they did it. If you walk into a McDonald's in India, there's nothing on the menu you would recognize other than fries and Coke. Everything else is Indian, mostly vegetarian. The median price point is 50 cents, and they figured out how to make money at that price point. It took them 9 years to figure this out. They took 7 years to figure out how to grow the right kind of potatoes in India in order to make fries. But when they cracked the code finally, now they're just stamping out restaurants. They're up to 300 and heading to 500 by 2015. So if you say, hey, listen, let me adapt to the market, and you have the tenacity to do that, it's a huge prize.
And then finally, what about Indian companies, homegrown Indian companies taking on the world as opposed to multinationals coming into India? Because India creates an enormous amount of CEOs. They export a lot of CEOs, and it's a very entrepreneurial society. Indeed. So what's going on in terms of internal growth in India?
Well, first, I think you've asked two questions. Are we seeing more and more Indian companies growing global? Absolutely, yes. Particularly as conditions in India right now are tough and tight. They're saying, why should we invest at home? Let's look overseas. In fact, earlier this week, Apollo Tyres in India bought Cooper Tyres out here, one of the largest transactions of recent years. So you're seeing more Indian companies becoming global. Now, Time magazine had a cover story not too long ago which said India's most successful export CEOs. It turns out that if you want to grow leaders, the way you do it is by taking bright, sort of passionate people and giving them big challenges. And they pretty much stretch and rise to to meet the challenge. And so you take a country like India it's just full of adversity and challenges. And so it's sort of a natural incubator for this kind of growth. And there's the old proverb that says, adversity is the mother of invention, or something of that sort. And so any environment where you've got tough challenges will naturally breed entrepreneurs and innovators, and India is no exception.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks, Atan.